Three reasons if I'm a customer that I come tonight. The first one is I get to see one of the top Google executives, GCP executives, talk about cloud and where Google's headed from a cloud standpoint. Really impressive. Thank you, Darren, for being here tonight. The second one is we get to see some of the top AI executives talk about what they're doing with their companies and where they're taking AI, which is really exciting. And the third, and maybe the most important, is we get from a networking standpoint. We've got some amazing customers here tonight, from some of the hottest startups in Silicon Valley, some big customers, Uber and eBay, Uber and PayPal. And so I want to make sure that at the end of this, we really maximize the networking, because we did a ton of business from this event last year. We got a couple of the biggest corporate commits globally for Google last year, and they came from this event. So from a networking standpoint, let us know who you want to meet. I'll introduce some of the people here in a little bit, but that's really important at the end of this. So let us know. From a question standpoint, I want to ask the customers here tonight, the industry's changed a lot since a year ago that we did this event. We're talking about Kubernetes and startups and digital native. We didn't really talk about AI a year ago, at least we didn't that much. And so from a customer standpoint, show of hands, a year ago, how many customers had an AI initiative or an AI customer, or is an AI customer 12 months ago? Show of hands. And as of today, show of hands. This is awesome. We're in Silicon Valley. If we're in Dallas or Chicago, we don't see that many hands. Cool. Kudos to you guys. About 50% of our business today comes from AI projects or AI proof of concepts or work that we do with our customers around AI. So it's really exciting. When Betsy and I started the company 3.5 years ago, we said, number one thing, we want to be engineering-led. We want to have the number one engineering team in the industry and what we do. And we think we've done that. So I want to call out a couple people so that at the end of this tonight, you can make some introductions. First of all, our CTO, Dr. PhD, Siddhant Gupta. Came to us from Microsoft, 20 different patents. Amazing in helping lead our AI practice. So please, from a customer standpoint, talk to Siddhant at the end of this. Kyle Mosquito. Ex-Googler, came to us from one of our biggest competitors, and just incredible in building out all of our delivery and engineering. Our CIO can't be here because he's in Hyderabad building out that office today, but please talk to Kamo, ex-Googler, when we get done tonight. And then some of the other people, Eric, who runs sales, is here. Where's Eric? Awesome. Puts together all of our programs. So I want to make sure that you know, from a CloudWorks standpoint, who's here tonight. From an agenda, we're going to jam through this. So I'm going to turn it over to Darren, the General Manager for North America for GCP, in charge of all startups. Turn it over to Darren next. From there, he's going to turn it over to Rad AI, one of our big customers, and talk about a huge success story that we had with Rad AI, and then what they're doing with AI in general to change the industry. And then from there, Betsy's going to do a fireside chat with one of our biggest customers. I'm really excited about that, what they're doing with AI and how it's changing the industry and how we live today. So thank you guys for coming. Much appreciated. I know how valuable your time is. My daughter's actually playing right now in a soccer game, and I'm missing that. So it really does mean a lot to us. We value that. Let us know who you want to meet after this, and we'll make sure we do as many networking connections as possible. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Darren.
So Jason did me a disservice in two ways. He never closed the bar right before I'm about to say something, so I'll go talk about that. And then also, they offered for me to stand on the stage, which I took offense to, by the way. But when you're Jason's size and you can just kind of meander through the crowd. On my best day, I'm 5'8", so if it's all right, I'm going to stand here in front of the stage, but I'm not going to grant him his wish of me getting up on the stage. So is that all right if we have some time together? All right, perfect. So as Jason said, we were here around the same time, almost a year ago, in this venue. A little bit of a drier night, but it was an incredible event. I'm just curious, who was at this event last year? I know I saw a number of familiar faces, not only kind of Google and CloudWorks folks, but it's really great to see a few familiar faces. And as Jason said, we all left that event just like really, really energized about the opportunity, not only that we had as partners, but also many of the organizations that we met. And as Jason said, some of the things that happened in that room last year ended up being game-changing outcomes for some of the folks we were able to meet. And our goal is to make tonight that again for many of you in this room. When Betsy, Jason, and I met at the very beginning of us kind of coming together as an org, the definition that I love that they continue to use today is a next generation partner. And that can sound a bit like a marketing term, if you don't mind me saying so. And yet what I found from CloudWorks over time is they truly are next generation. And for those of you that have worked with them, you know that that means they're, as we've heard, deeply engineering specialized services, right? We're gonna help provide the right technologies at the right time to help get things done more quickly and at high quality. What I really think is unique about Jason and the team, and he kind of just proved that by walking through the crowd and making his comments, is there are organizations that many of you know that want to put a clamp around the relationship. They want to hold you so tight in a hug that they think they're adding value, but in actuality, they're starving you out as an organization. And what I've been so impressed with all of the CloudWorks team members is they're not only focused on outcomes, but they're focused on connections and relationships and success. And I've personally been able to experience from these two individuals self-sacrifice as well for the good of customers. And so I can say that with a lot of credibility, with a lot of experience, and I just want to thank you both and the CloudWorks team for having us here. All right, so thank you guys. So I have a couple of notes. Sorry, I did cheat. I got a little bit of a heck from my team about, I have some notes, but I've done a few events this week, and if you don't mind, you're okay with me having a couple of things, right? So I appreciate that. So as Jason said, I have this incredible opportunity to work with a bunch of folks in this room leading our startup organization for Google Cloud. And we've made some really interesting changes and evolutions. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but what I am going to tell you is to say the shift that we've made and now the shift that we're making with our friends at CloudWorks is to provide the industry's really only end-to-end startup journey-oriented go-to-market motion. And what we mean by that is, for those of you in the room that just got out of Stanford and your mom just gave you $5,000 to build a prototype, we actually want to partner with you at that point of your evolution. So what's the problem you're trying to solve? How can technology maybe be a key player? How can Google be a part of that, and why can CloudWorks help? If you're a founder or a leadership team that are a little bit further along, you may not have raised institutional investing yet, but you're getting a little bit bigger, you have an MVP, you're starting to acquire customers, but you're starting to think about how do we scale and grow, how do we differentiate, but also how do we begin to think about go-to-market? Well, this organization is purpose-built for that stage of your maturity as well. And then lastly, if you're further along, you've raised funding or you're privately, you've self-funded, you've got a product or multiple products, and you're looking at ensuring you're running well, you're highly profitable, and you're seeking an exit, well, there's a purpose-built team represented in this room as well to help you get there. And while that may sound easy to say, that's really challenging for a big company to kind of rally around a customer set in the way that we've had. This is new for us, about 2 months in, but we're thrilled about what this is going to mean for our relationships with all of you. And I'd ask you to find Googlers in this room. There's a lot of us that are here, and let's and test us a little bit. Like, what does that mean, and how can we show up for you? So when we think about kind of the innovation wave, some of you heard me say this. Those of you that were here last year, don't call me out because I said this last year too, but it matters now more than ever. I've had this opportunity, you can see the gray hair that I have, that I've been able to be a part of a number of innovation waves, right? And I think many of us, in fact, a couple of us chatted about this before the event, that I was able to be in the old world of technology, pre-cloud, where we were trying to get people off of mainframe and Unix monolithic back-end systems and embrace something called client-server. Like, who of you, I don't want to ask you to raise your hand because you're as old as I am, but yeah, if you lived through that, did that hurt to raise your hand that high?
So much.
I guess. But you remember that wave, right? It was amazing, and it was so exciting because we were changing the world, and people were like, this is going to be incredible for us. And we lived through that wave, and we really revolutionized things. As a result of that move, you remember the next wave was, what's this concept of virtualization? We can extract the application away from the underlying hardware. Imagine what that's going to do for performance and cost. And you remember that wave was pretty incredible, right? We all thought that was going to change the world, and it did. Well, we followed up that wave with the next wave of cloud, true infrastructure as a service, right? Where you talk about extrapolation and scale, we suddenly could think about scaling up and scaling out at massive, unheard of scale. And that changed the world, and that was an incredible thing for us to live through. Now, what I told you a year ago when I was here was the reason why I left an online book company based in Seattle that had been doing things in cloud to come to Google. Was I believed fundamentally that the next wave of innovation was away from an infrastructure-oriented cloud to a data and application-oriented cloud. And I believed fundamentally that Google was the company that understood data and understood developers differently than other players in the market. And what was interesting is when I said that, not standing on this stage last year, AI was beginning to bubble. We were beginning to hear that something was happening, but it was nowhere near what it ultimately became. And what's fascinating a year later is here we are, and that concept of data developer application has transformed to AI now being this revolutionary wave. And for those of you like me that have been through one or all of the waves that we just went through, I think you're probably experiencing what I'm experiencing, which is the time frame from introducing the innovation to creating a little bit of hype, the hype curve, to having people experiment, to pressure testing the experiments and becoming application focused, has compressed to a level that I've never experienced in my life. And so whereas that may have been months or years in the early days, like I can tell you, my early days at Microsoft in 1999 and 2000, we didn't win away from Unix, IBM, Lotus Notes, DB2 in weeks or months. It took us years to make that transition. Virtualization was faster, cloud was faster, but my God, has AI made an incredible pace. And that comes with incredible excitement and some challenges and issues that all of us are facing, whether we're the technology provider, the partner, or an organization trying to make sense of all of this new technology. Now, at Google, we have a concept that we're really exploring, and that is AI for us is more than chips. AI is more than models. AI is even more than Vertex or individual APIs and services. AI for us, consider it an operating system. We believe it's a new operating system, a new platform concept that allows us to think about solving problems that we've never been able to solve before. But it's important that I would ask that you understand that when you see us and you see our friends at CloudWorks, we're not thinking about AI as an individual thing. We're thinking about AI as an all-encompassing new way of solving problems and addressing entirely new application and compute challenges. And that's exciting, thrilling, and a little bit scary. Now, I was able to be in a meeting with our CEO once. This was, again, a little over a year ago with an unnamed, now very popular AI-based application. And they were challenging Thomas at the time, talking about data and security, and you're talking about responsibility, what does that really mean? And Thomas had a really eloquent response that I've been stealing ever since. I don't know if I'm supposed to be paying him a royalty for using this phrase, but I loved it. His concept, and he took a pause and he looked at the leadership team of this now AI-driven application company and said, Google has taken decades to earn the trust of millions of users around the world, and we've provided a trusted window into the world's information. Therefore, we are not going to move as quickly as you want us to move. Therefore, we're going to take a totally different approach when it comes to AI. And when I thought about the theme for tonight of AI for Good, that meeting and that concept from TK rang in my brain because it allows us to all kind of pause for a second and ask ourselves, when we think about AI and we think about AI for good, what does that really mean? And so on my flight out here, I currently live on the East Coast, I was thinking about AI for good and the concept that we're seeing the application of advanced technology and AI in things that we've never processed before. So whether that be biotech and health tech, right? Some of the things that are already coming to pass on advancing trials of new medications, advanced new applications of technology for cancer research, cancer detection. None of that was available and being done a year ago, much less being done now, but that is AI for good. Whether you think about some of the work happening around AI, around community planning, there's literally cities working with Google to think through the grid, energy management, and water management, and using AI to ensure that there's capacity planning from a power perspective, from a water perspective. There are even cities that are using AI to appropriately time streetlights in order to ensure the movement of people more fluidly through cities. That's AI for good. There's a lot of AI for good happening in climate tech right now, where we're working with organizations using not only CO2 emission data, but even Google Maps information, overlaying that into models and doing predictive analytics as to where are there companies that are either doing a great job of contributing to saving our climate, and frankly, where are there companies and organizations that are not, and being able to take and recommend prescriptive guidance to these organizations, that is AI for good. But what really struck me in this room is if you happen to not be curing cancer, if you happen to not be doing something phenomenal in ed tech or in climate tech, all of us, though, have a chance to ensure that AI is not just for good, but that we're doing good with AI. And what that means to me and in Google is we're taking a very responsible approach to our models, to our biases, to the toxicity, to the IP infringement, and obviously we're not always getting it right. We're making a lot of mistakes as we're trying to move fast, but we're also trying to ensure that we move in a very responsible way. And you should expect more of that from us, that we're going to move quickly on some things. We're also going to take our time on some things that really matter because we fundamentally believe that you have to trust and value the relationships that we built with customers over many, many decades. Now, I was at a VC event earlier today. Some of my friends here were at the same event, and I thought it was fascinating when one of the partners from a venture capital firm had a really great way of phrasing that responsibility almost seems in conflict with everything the San Francisco tech scene stands for. And everyone kind of giggled, as you are. It's right, San Francisco is the birthplace of fail fast, make as many mistakes as you can early, and iterate in order to ship a product quickly. And he was making an interesting point that on one hand, AI is contrary to that. We're actually saying go slow, but we actually think that there's maybe a way to do both. We can move quickly, we can innovate quickly, but we can also be responsible together and make sure that we're doing things in the right way. Does that make sense? AI for good is not just societal impact. AI for good is how you're applying AI in a super tactful and controlled way. And we want to be a part of helping you make those decisions. So what I want to do is stop talking. I could go on for hours about what we're doing and how important we think this wave is, but there's no better way, in my opinion, for you to hear about what we're doing than to learn from someone that's been partnering closely with us for a period of time. When you talk about AI for good, this is an organization that I won't steal his thunder, but is applying technology in a way that is having a material impact on healthcare providers, therefore having a positive impact on the overall patient experience. And so with that, again, without trying to steal his thunder, I'll invite Jeff Chang up, the co-founder of Rad AI, an incredible startup, and he'll tell you more. Come on up.
Thanks, Darren. I also have notes, sorry. Background for Rad AI, the history of Rad AI is really for radiologists. So AI in radiology, how do we save radiologists time, reduce provider fatigue and burnout, and improve the overall quality of patient care? So the reason we started Rad AI, so my background is as a radiologist. I started really young, went to college at 13, med school at 16. Became the youngest radiologist and second youngest doctor on record in the US. Practiced as a radiologist for about 10 years. And I was doing all overnight shifts, so just overnight ER radiology. Ended up over 10 years doing about 250,000 studies. So radiology is the interpretation of medical imaging. You generate reports directly from the images just by dictating them. And so as radiologists, we actually spend 75 to 80% of our time dictating reports. So just nonstop dictation, 150, 200 reports a day, or per night. And you're just really tired out. And so I went back and did some graduate work in machine learning. My co-founder and I started Rad AI in 2018. Really focused on how do we improve the radiologist workflow. So we don't do anything on the imaging side, but we really focus on the generation of the report because that's what we as radiologists spend the most time on. So we were lucky in terms of when the company was founded in 2018 was when transformer models first came out. So we've always been transformer model based, and over time our large language models have grown in size and complexity. As a result, at this point, our product is used by over a third of all health systems radiology groups in the US. So it automatically generates the last third of the radiology report, customized to each individual radiologist's language. And so that way it saves the radiologist as much time as possible, usually about an hour for an 9-hour shift, reduces the number of words radiologists say by about a third. And so that really reduces fatigue and burnout for radiologists. There's also been a study that's being published by one of the large academic centers in the Southeast. They found that with Rad AI Omni Impressions, our first product, it drops the overall error rate in reports by 47% compared to the human radiologist baseline. So really, by reducing the error rate in reports, you can help make sure that patient care is improved. And from there, we continue to expand our product base. So our continuity product makes sure that patients come back for their follow-ups, right? So these are potential cancers that you see on images. So thyroid lesions, liver lesions, so on. They could all be cancer. In a couple of years, they could metastasize. And so if you make sure that the patient comes back in 6 months, 12 months when they're supposed to, then you diagnose and treat that cancer early. So we've had hundreds of patients that have been diagnosed and or treated early for cancer. So trying to make sure that you make a positive impact. So for us, it's really about, in the longer term, how do we make sure that we provide diagnostic care in minutes or seconds to people all across the world, make it much more accessible everywhere. So we're starting some of that international expansion now. So really, we appreciate all that both Google and CloudWorks has done for us over the past year. So we formed a strategic partnership with Google that was announced just in January. So for both moving all of our training, so our model training onto GCP, as well as for doing all of or being able to resell all of our products on the GCP marketplace. So to existing health systems, so on, and then partnering for potentially releasing new products together into radiology groups, health systems, and so on. We also have early access to a lot of the newest models from Google to see if they can help out in some of our products. And then on the CloudWorks side, it's been really helpful for getting us the H100 systems to be able to move on our training into GCP, to be able to do more distributed training, because our models are getting larger and larger and need the GPUs. And then also in getting our applications ready to resell on the marketplace. So really appreciate both being here and then also all the help and the camaraderie across the team with both CloudWorks and with Google over the past year. So yeah,
of hosting a fireside chat with an esteemed guest. So I'm going to give a little background and bio on him, and then we'll invite him to the stage. So Dave Ferrucci is an award-winning artificial intelligence researcher who led the IBM Watson team to its landmark Jeopardy success in 2011. Dr. Ferrucci has a PhD in computer science and over 100 patents and publications. He worked at IBM Research, where he was named an IBM Fellow, and he was also at Bridgewater Associates, directing the firm's AI research. Dr. Ferrucci's more than 25 years in AI eventually led him to found Elemental Cognition. ECAI combines the fluency of large language models with the rigor of formal reasoning to solve hard problems when businesses cannot afford to be wrong. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Dave Ferrucci to the stage.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. You did all the work. Impressive. Sit on. I already talked to you. You need to get the patents up there in the publications. 2,100. I know you told me about your citations, though. 1,400 citations. Sit on us. Okay. Thank you. We run a tight ship at CloudWorks. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining. We're thrilled to have the opportunity to chat with you about all things AI. And I know you have some opinions and some thoughts and some,
A few opinions.
just a few. So to start, Gen AI has exploded, right, onto the scene. And it's top of mind. Most businesses, I don't think there's a business in this country that is not thinking about AI. So you've been in AI your whole life, essentially. And tell us about your perspective, like the current state of the market. Is it overhyped? Have you ever seen this kind of excitement before? Tell me a little bit more about your thoughts.
So how many people know about the 2 AI winters? A couple of people. There were AI winters, right? So there was such huge hype in AI, has happened many times in history, but 2 notable times where it reached a peak and then it didn't deliver on the promises, and all funding stopped, all over the place. And in fact, I think it was the second AI winter. I joined IBM Research to work on AI. And as Betsy said, I've been doing my whole life. My father made this giant mistake because I was home one summer and school was out for summer. And he didn't really understand the concept of school being out for summer. And I told him, listen, Alice Cooper, how many people got that joke? Anyways, he said, school's out.
So we're doing stand-up tonight, right?
He said, you can't just sit home and do nothing. You got to keep busy. You got to keep working. I don't care if the teachers are out. And so he finds this, local college that's teaching an advanced math class. And it was a really computer programming class. And so I get out of the first class and I said, this is going to change the world. I hate doing work. If I can figure out how to describe the work I want to do, and I can get a machine to do it for me, this is going to change everything. And this is from writing the program. And so I just kept thinking about how do we model human intelligence? Can we get a machine to think like we do? Can we get a machine to work with us to solve hard problems? The less I have to do and the more creative I can be, the more effective I can be, the more productive I can be. And so that I was just bitten by this notion of artificial intelligence. And so were others in those periods. And research began, and there was so much hype generated because just the word, the idea, I can get a machine to be intelligent, is incredibly compelling. And so you would get these hype cycles. Oh, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, it's going to do that. And then it wouldn't make it. So I got my first job at IBM Research doing AI, because that's all I really wanted to do. And within a year, the second AI winter hit, and they stopped all AI projects.
It's like thing.
And my manager came to me and said, Dave, you don't probably want to do AI and be a technologist. You probably want to be a manufacturing process planner. And I said, I quit. And I left, went back to IBM and ended up, doing Watson there. But during that period, we had, the cycle going up and down. So to answer your question, Betsy, it's different now. There's not going to be another AI winter. What I believed in high school when I wrote that first computer program was that this is going to, the relationship between human and machine is going to change the course of history. It's going to dominate how we do things, how we think, how we work, how we process information, how we create, how we make decisions. It's not going to go away. It's here to stay. And learning how to build that relationship and what to expect from it as it advances is probably one of the most important questions that faces humanity, frankly. I really believe that. So I'm going to stop there and let you ask your question.
Also, I love it. Could listen to you all day. I want more jokes though. So I like to ask Google lunch. So what are you hearing in terms of from customers today? So is AI, and there's not going to be another winter, but is the hype living up to their expectations from what it can produce and what it can do for their businesses?
So the answer is yes and no. And again, this is not, it's not a crippling no. It's an evolution, quite honestly. But let me talk about the yes. So when you look at I've been in natural language processing and in AI reasoning for longer than I care to mention. And what large language models are doing for us is they're giving us this language intelligence, if you will. And that's critically important. And it's important because of how humans express themselves, how they think, how they communicate information. And if AI can give us access and lower the barrier of entry to communicating with powerful machines that can do jobs even better than we can, we have a revolution. And that's the positive part, I think, of generative AI, and that's true. You've all used it. You can see how it can write and how it can create and how it can generate ideas for you and help you remember things or see things that you didn't see before. But when you bring that type of power into the enterprise and you want to deliver applications that don't make mistakes, that are reliable, that are accurate, that are provably correct, because that's what we're used to when we write programs. We write them to a specification, we build formal systems, and they execute. And I'll give you an example. It wasn't that long ago that I was talking to a company about chatbots, and they said every single line that that chatbot is going to deliver to a customer needs to go through corporate and get approved. That wasn't, I mean, it was a year ago. Now they're like, how are you going to do that? You don't even know what it's going to say. So you were talking about how quickly you could wrap a prototype now, which is unbelievable. I agree 100%. It's amazing how much that's changed. I mean, first, I have one of the engineers on the EC team I've been with a very long time, back when we were working on Lotsy. He's brilliant. He's one of the 10x or 20x type engineers. The biggest, the most important thing that ever happened to him was the IDE, right? And he says this was life-changing. This is how folks have been engineering it. So because of how much it, interactive development environment, how much it improved his performance, the ability for him to build software. Okay. Now you have people who come to me and say, I built a prototype in 20 minutes. We're doing prompt engineering. And then and it works. And then 20 minutes later it doesn't work. That's the problem with prompt engineering. So we have, I mean, the LLMs are like an empirical system. I mean, they're giant statistical models, and you're poking them to kind of try to figure out what they're going to do today. So in many ways, they break all software engineering principles that we've come to rely on in the enterprise. They break them all. I mean, the separation between interface and implementation. What happened to that? The reliability of it works today, but it might not work tomorrow. So this is where we're struggling. And the way to do this is to think about what is the right role for generative AI today. When you sit down, you build enterprise applications, what is the right role for it? If you're doing creative writing, we understand that role. If you're exploring a topic, we understand that role. When you're building enterprise applications, what do you want that LLM to do? You want it to get knowledge out of all the language, because there's so much knowledge in language. You want it to get that knowledge out. You want it to have a conversation with the end user. You want that fluency. You want that communication with the human. But in the middle, you want that system to produce correct, reliable, accurate answers that you can count on, your business can count on, your customers can count on. And there's a way to do that. And that's to use the LLM to provide access to reasoning systems, formal reasoning systems, that produce provably correct answers, independently of language. And so, incredible technology, remarkable transformation, but alone, not the answer for the enterprise. It's a more complex architecture that needs to be delivered for the enterprise, where LLMs are a huge part of it. Because you couldn't do it without them. Now, I mean, I can go on. At the same time, beneath the LLM, and reference was made to some of these incredible recent innovations earlier, there's this technology, right? This attention-based transformer technology that you could apply to language. We know we could apply it to language, we could apply it to images. But we can apply it to any sort of sequence of things where the patterns, we can associate the patterns with their effect. And we can learn how those patterns emerge from that data. These are very powerful machines, these attention-based transformers, independently of language as an application. Like, for example, their application to DNA, understanding the relationship between how the DNA sequences and how they manifest. Decoding the genome, as an example, understanding how proteins interact. This is phenomenal, and this is because of this underlying technology. So the future is incredibly exciting. AI for good. We're not going to have another AI winter. We are going to have challenges, and those were referred to earlier as well. Because one of the things that LLMs and Gen AI in many ways is doing is it's revealing some of our cognitive weaknesses. How susceptible we are to well-formed language. The difference between rhetoric, fact, fiction, and reason is not so simple. It's not so simple. And so realizing now how quickly you can amplify and spread propaganda. I mean, I can take an LLM quite literally and then take Wikipedia and rewrite history with a particular bias. That's powerful and frightening. So, huge opportunity, work to do. Work to do. I think when you look at the customers that we speak to and what's happening inside the enterprise, there's enormous demand. And there's enormous opportunity with AI. But we need to carefully architect these solutions, understanding their requirements to deliver accuracy, reliability, and transparency. I'll stop.
Awesome, Fred. So you touched on this a little bit. Thank you. That was very informative. You touched on this a little bit, but dive in a little more to these series of articles you guys published called Beyond Future of AI Beyond LLMs. Talk more about the vision for the future. If you already touched on it, we can move on. But is there more you want to say about these published articles?
I drive, my marketing guy crazy because every time I hear a title, did I approve that title? I don't know that I like that title. The part that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was like the beyond LLMs. LLMs are a critical part. Again, they're so powerful and so effective. And that article, that series of articles, is about how to use them effectively to deliver reliability and accuracy in the enterprise. It's how to use them. It's not like I'm not saying I have the next LLM. I have an architecture that uses LLMs to acquire knowledge, to disambiguate it, make it precise, and then I have a mechanism for reasoning over that knowledge that is independent of language, that is based on mathematical logic, that delivers accurate, provably correct answers, and then I use LLMs again to deliver its inferences through natural language. This is an LLM-based solution, but it's not LLM alone.
Great, thank you. So, exciting, just came out one of your reports on the complex reasoning scenarios. So tell me about the results of those and what you guys were testing.
So if you take a set of problems, so how do I characterize these problems? So these problems are problems that require a complex network of dependencies. One example, how many people are familiar with constraint processing, constraint optimization? So many problems can be modeled by a set of constraints. So you can take product configuration. How to configure, how do I configure a car? Or how do I configure a computer? Or how do I configure a financial portfolio? Or how do I configure a healthcare benefits package? And how do I configure it? Or how do I configure a spatial layout to conform to all the, the regulations and rules that also satisfy the customer's requirements? Or how do I configure a complex, travel plan around the world that has to align with all the flight schedules, plus my preferences, plus the fare rules, and I want to optimize for price and I want to optimize for layovers. So there's a broad class of problems that are solved, that can be solved by a formal general purpose reasoner as long as I can represent those business requirements in an accurate and unambiguous way. So if we took a collection of problems like that and we said, let's go through this process of conversing with a human, but ultimately producing a natural language business specification. You could read it, I can read it, we can understand it, but I can also execute it. So I use an LLM to have a conversation. I don't do prompt engineering. So what we're setting up is a different architecture and a different approach. Instead of doing prompt engineering, I have a dialogue, I'm conversing with you, I'm understanding your business requirements. I'm disambiguating that language, I'm giving you back a document now. That document's a formal spec. Now I say, go solve that problem. Here it is, it's language. It's complete, I know it's complete because we've tested it. It has everything you need to know. Now go solve that travel problem, or go solve that product configuration, or go solve that planning problem. Use an LLM to do that, versus use a reasoner to do that. And then call an LLM to talk about it. When you compare those two approaches, as the complexity of the problem increases, the LLM performance starts at 50% and then just goes down. When you do it that way, we don't get anything wrong. Not only don't we get anything wrong, we can hand it a plan and say, detect the problem and resolve it for me. We don't get anything wrong. And LLM is down, way down. But you could sit there and you say, well, you're kind of punching down. Should you expect an LLM alone to do that? But that's the question enterprise is asking itself today. That's exactly the question. So how do you get the fluency? And you introduced those the closet approach. So closet approach is an interesting problem, and so you want to do layouts. Like you want to configure your closet for a particular space, or you want to configure a kitchen, or that kind of thing. But you want to actually have a conversation with the system. You want to say, here's what I want, here are my requirements. I'll move that over there. I don't really like that. And then you might have a bunch of constraints. Like I definitely want the closet over there. It's a little bit too close to the bathroom. What happens if we move the bathroom? And what's happening? And I want to maximize my space. I want to also minimize my cost. Oh, now that I see that, I'm okay having less space as long as you move this thing over there. So you have a system that it's going to configure this space, but you don't even know what your requirements are at the beginning, because as you realize the implication of your choices, you're going to have to replan and replan again and replan again. And the last thing you want in that process is noise or error, because it's just going to amplify. So I want the fluency and the dynamic language-based interaction. Of course I want the imagery, because I want to see it. But I want the interactivity. I want the ability to detect problems, resolve them. Oh, by the way, what if I really want this? How might I do that? Oh, here's your 5 alternatives. And they're always right. That's the problem. It's a perfect problem for this type of architecture. And it's very exciting because, you could imagine how much more effective. I mean, I wish I had this when we were doing our kitchen. Anyway, that's a longer story, which I'm not going to get into.
Yeah. Which I did. I think I saw photos of your new kitchen.
You saw pictures of my kitchen?
Yeah, we had lunch at Matt's. Yeah, it was a great lunch. I saw photos of the kitchen.
I'm not sure who was more forward in that conversation.
Yeah, that was you. That was you.
I showed you pictures
that was a
of my
really
kitchen.
fun lunch. And it was no cocktail lunch. I saw pictures of the kitchen. That's when we became friends. Wonderful. So we're also using a similar model. CloudWorks is a customer as well, which is great. We're using that for resource management. Based on kind of the same system, right?
Yes.
Yeah, same use
So
case.
it's the same platform. Like it's domain independent. You can set up any kind of model in it, whether it's resource management scheduling, or it's spatial layouts, or it's travel and logistics, and retail and supply chain. Right? These are all spaces where we're active in.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, that's the main event, you guys. Can we give Dave a round of applause? And has some crew here as well, so if you guys want to learn more about the product, what they do, please find them. Matt Demler,
Am I doing
Shannon.
a stand-up set or no?
Yeah, right now. We're gonna open the bar back up and then Dave's coming up to do stand-up. Yes. All right, thank you guys so much. Enjoy Mix Mingle. Let's go.
No, we do like bump calls. Oh shit, how do we do this?